Okay, so I watched this debate, Michael Jones versus Vegan Gains, I guess his name is Christianity harmful? Now, I've watched 3 Michael Jones debates on this topic. One with Aaron Ra, one with Matt Dillahunty, and this one. And this one wasn't quite the case closed slam dunk that the Matt Dillahunty was. But it was pretty case closed. I mean, I think actually Vegan Gains may have quit in the halfway through the debate. I think he quit. I really do. I think he said something like, I haven't done enough research, and let me come back when I've done some more research on the subject. And I kind of think, that's okay. I quit the debate. Let me come back when I've actually done a little research on the topic. I applaud him for his honesty, but here's what he should find when he researches the topic. Because this is actually the reason why Michael Jones is winning this particular debate, and the one with Matt Dillahunty won case closed going away, 100-3. This one he won pretty much, but the reason why he keeps winning is important, because he's bringing the evidence. Now, this person is an anti-theist and an atheist. So I'm assuming that he thinks that we are supposed to predicate our beliefs on reality and what the evidence suggests. So when he goes, I applaud him for his honesty, but what should happen when he goes and actually researches the topic and starts thinking about it more clearly and study it with some depth is he'll come to the inescapable conclusion that, there's a lot of pro-social benefits to religion. It isn't actually harmful. It may be harmful. It may be harmful in some cases, but it's a far more complicated picture than I was led to believe, because I was basing my previous opinion on just strong feelings, which is what they always tell we the Christians not to do. He's basically saying, I really, really, really feel that religion is terrible and awful and destructive, therefore it is. Even when he was talking about Islam, for example, he literally said this. He said, Islam, he literally said, what did he say? I wrote it down. He said, Islam promotes violence. Islam promotes violence. Now, I personally have never read the Quran, and I sincerely doubt he has either. So you can't just make a blanket statement. Islam promotes violence. In order to do a fair analysis of whether that's true, you'd have to actually dig into the Quran, and you'd have to see, there's a lot of even Christians who will say Islam promotes violence, and they'll cite 1 or 2 scriptures or whatever passages from the Quran that would seem to say kill the heathen. Sure, but in order to make a fair analysis of what in fact a religion promotes, you have to dig in deep. I'm sure that there are pro-social ideas in the Quran. I'm relatively certain of. I don't know that for a fact because I've never read the Quran, unlike some of the other texts. I've read the Bhagavad Gita, I've read the Upanishads, I've read the Tao Te Ching, I've studied Buddhism, but I've never actually read the Quran. So I'm totally ignorant on the subject. But I'm relatively certain he is too, which means you can't make a blanket statement. Islam promotes violence. Yes, you've seen probably some passages from the Quran that would seem to promote violence, but you haven't read the Quran. And you have to differentiate. It's the classic cherry picking that they do with the Bible. There's some scriptures in the Bible that would seem to be, that seem to promote bad ideas or homophobia or things like that, and then they ignore the hundreds upon hundreds that actually tell you to do things that are socially positive. Even with Islam, the example can be made. For example, there are the 5 pillars of Islam, okay? One of the 5 pillars of Islam, which means the 5 things that you absolutely are supposed to do if you're a Muslim, is alms for the poor. That's one of the actual pillars of Islam. So that right, case closed, is promoting a behavior that is, at least in that instance, really socially positive. In order to do a fair analysis of Islam, you'd have to cut the Quran into all the different things that it tells you to do. And you line them up. Okay, here's 15 times where it tells you to do violent acts in the name of Allah, but here's 50 times where it tells you to do alms for the poor. Because if you do that with the Bible, It's case closed. The Bible is really, really, really benevolent. It tells you to do things that are socially benevolent. 80 times to every one time there's something it says that is debatably either homophobic or not positive, or, 80 times to one. So on balance, the Bible is a totally pro-social book. That's how you have to do an analysis of a text to decide if it is creating something, if it's producing a behavior. And it was funny because he said to, the debate got really funny. Like I said, he pretty much quit during the debate, and he said to Michael Jones, you can't expect me to come up with data to back up what I'm saying. You can't expect, he literally said, you can't expect me to have meta-analysis on the benefits of religion to back up what I'm saying. The entire point of his argument, and I get that he wasn't fully prepared, so he's going to try and go back and study the subject more. But that's what should happen when you study the subject more. It's ironic that Adam Friended was moderating the debate, because that's exactly why Adam Friended is not an anti-theist, because he studied the subject enough to understand that the data, the facts, the metadata analysis, and the facts point to the sociological utility of religion, the benefits of religion more often than not. And the times where you can pin some harmful attributes to religion, it's complex. It's not necessarily intrinsic to the religion itself. That's why I brought up the Pillar of Islam. So, and if you're an anti-theist, you don't have to dig deep to do this. Some of my last videos I talked about this. All you have to do is write pro-social benefits of religion into a Google search, or sociological utility of religion into a Google search. Right then and there, you'll have 2 pages of tons of studies showing you that religion in many, many, many cases has pro-social benefits. His arguments to the contrary were, they were really obviously fallacious, and I'm sure he understands that they are too. So I won't really totally tear them apart. Cosmic skeptic really thinks that religion's terrible. Therefore, religion's terrible. How do you deal with someone like Cosmic Skeptic who really thinks religion's bad? Therefore, religion's bad. And he was kind of arguing against the whole idea that you go on the analysis, that you go on the data. But that's exactly what you do. But just to underscore the fact that the times where it's potentially harmful, because it's a really complicated picture. Correlation is not causation. All anti-theists should know that cold, and they should be able to quote that in their sleep. As much as all atheism means a lack of belief in God. Correlation does not equal causation. Which means, yes, there are some correlations between behaviors that we don't necessarily want people to be engaging in and religiosity. But there's tons of correlations between behaviors that we want people to be engaging in and religiosity. And in the cases of the pro-social behaviors, they're explicit. Don't steal. Think about if you're hiring someone at your company, and he's a born-again Christian, a really committed Christian. What are the things you're going to automatically ascribe to him? Yeah, it's anecdotal evidence, but really think about it. You're about to hire somebody, he's a Christian, you're going to think, yeah, he's probably going to vote against gay marriage. Okay. But is he going to steal? Probably not. Is he going to lie? Meh. His arguments to the contrary was basically, Cosmic Skeptic really thinks religion is awful, and it was really awful in his experience, therefore it's awful. Why is it more complicated? Let's take something where there's a strong correlation in the United States of America between, for example, being a conservative and being a Christian. Now, if you grow up in the Bible Belt, good chance that this guy did, that was once a fundamentalist Christian, a lot of atheists are, and they grew up in the Bible Belt. If you grow up in the Bible Belt, you will think, case closed, being a Christian means you're a conservative. It's not intrinsic to Christianity. Matter of fact, it's relatively recent in American history that correlation actually exists. If you actually do research and you dig in and you go past your preconceived notions, you'll find that that's a relatively new phenomena. Yes, it's a phenomenon in the United States. And yes, in the United States, there's a strong correlation between being a conservative, right-wing person and being a practicing Christian. But that wasn't always so. As recently as 1975, you had someone like Michelle Bachmann, and I've heard her talk about this in her own words. If you don't know who Michelle Bachmann is, she was a little bit more famous like 8 or 9 years ago. She's a relatively well-known, famously right-wing congresswoman from, I think, Minnesota. I'm not sure if it's Minnesota. But she was really well-known as a conservative right-winger. You know, SJWs hate her. She used to be one of those people that go, yeah, automatically, yeah. Worse than Stephanie. She said, I've heard her talk about this. When she first started getting involved in politics, she was campaigning for Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, the famous Democrat, was the first politician who was open about being a born-again Christian. Nowadays, there's a strong correlation between the Democratic Party and creeping secularism. That wasn't always true. There used to be a really strong Christian liberal groups, and there was strong Christian, Catholic movement in the Democratic Party. So it's relatively recent that conservatism and Christianity in the United States of America tend to go hand in hand. It's not always true, and it's not intrinsic to Christianity at all. You can make a really good case that some of the scriptures have more left-leaning implications. That what you've done unto the least of my children, you've done unto me. I'm not saying that the Bible is necessarily left-leaning or Jesus was left-leaning, but you can make a pretty strong case that some of the scriptures would actually make someone more liberal. There have been tons of liberal Christians who have made that case over the years. So it's not intrinsic to the Bible itself or the teachings of Jesus Christ, all I'm trying to point out. So when he starts to dig in and goes back and does his research, he should actually let his research inform his opinion on the subject. And if he were to do that, he would find out that, what he is proposing isn't really true. It's based more on a really strong feeling. I don't like religion. Religion was destructive in my experience. Therefore, it's always harmful. Most of the stuff that he said to the contrary were anecdotes. And what Michael Jones was trying to bring to the table, and again, Christians, if you should go watch the other two videos, the other two debates Michael Jones has done on this subject with Aaron Ra, Matt Dillahunty. I'll probably make another video about this particular debate because I think this is something that Christians should actually latch onto. You want to start winning these debates, this is the one that we can win. Why? Because all of the evidence is on our side. Michael Jones is not basing his arguments on I wish it were so or I really feel this strongly. It's not a faith-based argument. It's an evidence-based argument. It's what atheists always say they want. Most of the facts back up Michael Jones's side of the argument. So when Vegan Gains goes and investigates more clearly and goes and looks at the research, he should actually change his opinion, just like Adam Friended has. Once upon a time, Adam Friended was an anti-theist too. Why? Because he was listening to anti-theist videos, probably. If Aaron Ra were honestly investigating both sides of the equation, Aaron Ra would come to similar conclusions as Adam Friended. Why? Because it's what the evidence suggests. There are some correlations between some behaviors that we don't necessarily want people doing. For example, homophobia or prejudices. So there are some studies that Aaron Ra cites where, practicing Christians are potentially a little bit more likely to be bigoted. I tend to think that's a real study, and that's probably true. So there are some arguments on that side of the equation. Yeah, the religion might be a little bit more likely to make you a little prejudiced here. That stands to reason. It comes part of the territory of social cohesion. But there are thousands of more studies on the other side of the equation. These positive behaviors, these pro-social behaviors, these good behaviors are strongly linked to Christianity or religion. So that's what he should, if that's what he should find when he goes and does the research and comes back to debate Michael Jones again. It should actually change his opinion on the subject. Because it's not hard to do. Once you start examining the evidence clearly, you'll find out, hey, wait a minute, I was mistaken. Religion isn't so terrible and evil. Religion isn't necessarily destructive. Matter of fact, most of the evidence suggests that it's, for the most part, positive. So, there you go, kids. I definitely will make another video on this subject because, it's worth repeating. And Christians, if you're thinking about grabbing this particular debate topic, go for it. You can cheat off of Michael Jones. Watch those 3 debates. Get his answers. Go, okay, I got all these great studies. And just cite all the studies he cites. It's a slam dunk. Why? Because the evidence is on the side of Christianity for a change. It is on our side. And we don't need to have faith. Nobody needs to believe us about Jesus dying on the cross, having risen from the dead and forgiving our sins. No one needs to believe us about that stuff. We can totally win these debates easily based solely on the evidence. And if the anti-theist is actually honest and has integrity, they're going to yield. Why? Because the evidence suggests that we're telling the truth. The evidence is pretty clear-cut in favor of the social benefits of religion. Pretty clear-cut. Which means the anti-theist is actually going to yield the point or be dishonest. So, there you go, kids. It's worth watching. Check out the debate. It's funny. It was funny when he quit. I mean, he kind of quit, right? I gotta go. I gotta get out of this debate and go do some research. So all I'm saying is when he does the research, that should actually change his opinion. It really should. Because the conclusions are obvious. If you don't want to become a practicing Christian, fine. Fine. But the conclusions on the pro-social benefits of religion, they're pretty much case closed. So, there you have it, kids. That is all for now. Mass is ended. Go in peace. Amen.